necessarily not homeschooling, but finding outside sources, finding other authorities for your son to be under, finding to get mom out of the picture a little bit, so it's not, as her son has what I think the Greeks called the thumos, he wants to prove himself. He wants to say, am I a man? And do I have what it takes? And sometimes that's when he has to do that up against his mother. That's a very difficult, it strains that relationship. So whatever mom can do at that point to find outside help with her sons, I think is a great idea. I'm not against homeschooling. As a matter of fact, I think all these different things that we're seeing, all these homeschooling, out of homeschooling is coming the idea that we can educate in new ways, that we are not stuck with this old model that is obviously not working, that we definitely can look for compilations of this, a 3-day school week, a 4-day school week, a shorter day, a longer day, a lesser day, 9 months a year, 10 months a year, all year. There's just so many things that we can do where with the internet and all this, the thinking, we can break away from this model that is failing our boys. And one way, I talked to you earlier about this, and this I'll get this little basic thing, but one way I think we are failing our boys is we're failing to understand the sleep needs of teenagers. And right now in this country, we have a crisis of mental illness among teenage boys. They're the highest category of mentally ill people. I think the ages 15 to 28 is a very high category, and much of that is related to lack of sleep. Our boys are not getting enough sleep. Our school systems are not set up for boys to get sleep. So right away, I would start my school at a later hour. I would probably start a school at about 9 o'clock in the morning.
Well, the question for my listeners is, Cindy Rollins, how much sleep should a boy get?
Well, I think they would need about 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night. And we, of course, as adults, we need 6 to 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I try to get 8 hours. I think brain science is just realizing how important sleep is to our brains and to our mental health. And so I really believe that if we could start there, I think we would have a huge, if our public school system could start there, we'd have a huge change in a little bit of those statistics.
Well, how are schools today, Cindy Rollins, segregated? And would a school for boys, a charter school for boys, even perhaps avoid some of those the problems of segregation of like types together?
Yeah. For boys, segregation from girls is a wonderful, wonderful idea. They have a total different need base than girls. And often when they're with girls, the girls are outshining them. The girls are making them look bad. And a boy's reaction to the powerful girl is, let her go. Let her be the powerhouse. Let her do it. I'm not gonna fight this girl. I'm not gonna go up against this girl. So right away, you have a system where boys are trained in our school system to not try. And you see this over and over and over again. That their whole idea is to sit there and not learn. They go to school with the attitude, whatever I do, I'm not going to put myself out there. So we need schools that are challenging boys, and we need schools that admire boys for their unique characteristics. Charlotte Mason talked about knowledge. I think that in a boys' school, there are two things that you're going to have that would come up naturally. One of those is work, and one of those would be getting the boy outside. And that's the other thing our boys are missing, because kids don't play outside anymore, and because they're on the computer so much screen time, our kids are not getting out in the sun. They're not getting the benefits of being out of doors, which God, I feel, made men to be out of doors.
Well, what did Charlotte Mason say about outside of classroom activities?
Well, Charlotte Mason said the mornings were for knowledge and gaining knowledge, and the afternoons are for work and being outside. And I think that's a perfect model. No boy should be locked in a classroom all day long. A boy there should be that. This is not to disparage what goes on in the classroom, because knowledge is important. It is the thing. We don't ever want to forget that what we want to give our boys is knowledge, wisdom and knowledge, understanding, which is built on knowledge. We want to admire knowledge. We want to seek knowledge, but we don't want to forget that that is something we're building on. We're not building our building all today. We want to have a little bit of knowledge in the morning, or as much, a good portion, and then that's it. We want to go outside and we want to work. Now, we don't want to go inside and play video games the rest of the day, and that's one reason. We have to be very careful when we're making our models, because if we say, well, we just won't do anything in the afternoons, and then it turns out that in the afternoons we're just sitting around watching television, watching movies, playing video games, then we're not really gaining anything by not having school in the afternoons. But so we definitely need to have a plan for our afternoons. But I think the afternoons should be built on service. Oh, we can't forget service. Building a house. The Habitat for Humanity does a lot of work in Chattanooga. Getting our boys involved in those things. Now, I do think there's a little problem. I think what I heard is you have to be 18 to work. This is our culture. Our culture has outlawed some of the things that would make our schools and our educational system better. But getting our boys into these sort of projects where they're thinking about other people, they're not just thinking about themselves. They're working with their hands. They're working. That could be gardening, perhaps. Oh, absolutely. Mechanic gardening. Work outside. All of that, yes. In the open, as opposed to in a enclosed room. Yeah, any skill. Under neon lights. Any skill. So when I say the mornings are for knowledge, the mornings are not for skills. And because we don't want to forget, a lot of times we'll say, well, let's give our boys a technical school, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with a technical school. But if we forget that they must build their technique on knowledge, then we don't have a good balance. So we want to have technical schools and skills, but we want those skills to be done in the afternoon, and in the morning, we want to have the knowledge base. So when I talk, I don't want to ever forget the fact that we have this morning time full of knowledge, the afternoon time full of skills, service, and being out of doors. In Chattanooga, there's just no end to our ability to get out of doors, and we should be taking advantage of that. And it's a shame that our public schools can't take advantage of this wonderful opportunity we have just free at our doorstep. In the morning times, Cindy Rollins, what would you propose about the length of time given to any particular subject, let's say science or history? In the normal school, everything is worth about 50 minutes, and suddenly, no matter how compelling the material, suddenly the bell rings and the students slap their books shut and walk off. What about the organization of classes, and what subjects would you say are most strongly aid a young male? Well, any subject is going to aid a male if it's interesting, if it's idea based. We want to have our subjects based on ideas, and because we want their minds to be processing. And really, education comes down to, what do I give my attention to? I am going to learn as a person today what I pay attention to, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to learn. So education comes down to, am I paying attention? And so here's where Charlotte Mason is a little bit different than maybe what you're thinking. You think, 50 minutes, lessons up. Well, you've had a teacher talking for 50 minutes. Very few people are going to listen to someone talk for 50 minutes. That's just not how especially if you're listening to the radio, you can get out your phone. You can pay attention to 2 or 3 things at the same time. But if you're just sitting in a classroom and you're having to look at the teacher, it's just like church. I would rather have a short sermon than a long sermon, because I keep that short sermon with me, because I took what was meat out of it, and I've been able to go on from there. It doesn't help me for the pastor to say the point over and over and over again. I don't learn more because he said it over and over again. We think that's how learning happens, because we know people don't pay attention. But that is what an ideal education would consist of: teaching our children that what we are teaching them matters, and that we should pay attention to it. So shorter lessons can help that. When you have a young child, they have a short attention span. That means they can only learn one thing for a short amount of time. But what you can do is you change the subject. I'm reading about American history. I read for a short amount of time. I change. I go to world history, or I go to science. I start reading in different areas, and so I can gain an advantage of the short attention span to change my subject so that the child's attention continues to be fully aware. But I can't emphasize enough the idea that what we're getting at is processing. We want our children to process what they're hearing, so we have to give them meat and then let them process that meat. Charlotte Mason talks about it this way. She said our minds, which she talks about frequently, our mind is like our body. Our body requires food to have energy to go about our day. Our mind, in the exact same way, our mind needs food. If we get that food, we take what we need out of it. Some of us, we may all hear the same thing, and some of us might need different vitamins, if you want to put it in that. So we each take something out of what we're learning, but it may not be the exact same thing, and we process that. And as our mind processes, that is learning. And without that processing, you don't have true learning. So what I think we have now in our schools is we have a lot of teaching and very little learning. And I think that this needs to be addressed by someone in our culture.
What does that mean?
Well,
a lot of teaching and not a lot of learning.
Well,
Explain
I think that whenever we come up with some new idea, be it No Child Left Behind or whatever the newest Common Core, it's all about teaching. It's all about teaching.
It's teacher-centric.
Yes. What is the teacher going to teach the child? Which absolutely means nothing to the child. It doesn't mean anything about what's going to be learned or what's going to be taken away. So we have to ask ourselves, how do people learn? And we have to feed the mind the things that the mind needs to be fed. If we don't, then we can't expect there to be learning to take place.
Well, it sounds like you're suggesting that there has to be created a desire for learning.
Yes, and the one way that desire is implemented is through knowledge, by understanding that the mind does want knowledge, that people do want knowledge. So one other thing I would say in that, where we're really failing our boys, and this is a big idea, so I don't know if we have time to talk about it, is the idea of honor. Honor is a huge key that we're missing in this culture. And you see that in how many of our boys, I know you can relate to this, how often do our boys join the military when they graduate? These boys are hungry to prove themselves. I said they wanted to, am I man enough? Do I have what it takes? Our boys are dying in this culture. Girls do far better than they in school and in the subjects that we teach them. The girls are outpacing the boys because we misunderstood what it means to actually learn. We don't feed their minds, and the boys get bored before the girls do. But imagine reading a book from say your son grows up. I have a blog post on Circe. It used to be called The Literature of Honor for Boys, but a few years ago, I looked all over to find this article and I couldn't find it. But a man named Stephen somebody wrote an article about why schools are failing our boys, and he said that the reason our boys are failing is there is no honor. They have nothing to strive for to be honorable. Our culture doesn't admire honor. The
idea of honor implies virtue in struggle with some vice or some wrong or some injustice, right? So it implies struggle, and it implies a fixed moral standard, an eternal, universal, fixed moral standard. That's right. Of some kind.
Right. So if you don't have a fixed moral standard, it's very hard to have honor, because what is honor? I mean, so we've left our boys in this morass, and it's very sad because we see increased violence against women from men. And we see that because there isn't really any motivation for a boy to be honorable. And without that honor, we've left our boys lost. So I always look at it this way. Take a book that maybe you read to your child when they're growing up, The Chronicles of Narnia, or just The Princess and the Goblin, or I don't know, any book, G.A. Henty, or or Horatio Alger, the boy pulls himself up by his bootstraps. Try to imagine what would happen. Every once in a while in those books, there's a bully, and when the boy's a young child, there's a bully, and the hero gets thrashed. The hero thrashes the bully eventually. Well, what would happen? What in our culture, we don't have anything to replace that idea, because we can't thrash anybody. So we have these boiling, and I'm not obviously not promoting the idea of thrashing, but I will say this: we have a desperate need for our boys to understand honor.
This is David Toulis. We're talking with Cindy Rollins, who writes for CerseiInstitute.org. She's a Hickson area mom. She and her husband Tim have 9 children, 8 boys. Her children are ages 14 to 31. 2 of the Rollins children are still at home. 1 is being homeschooled. Cindy is a writer and writes about cultivating wisdom and virtue at the CerseiInstitute.org. She speaks around the country. In May, she'll be in Colorado talking about nourishing your own soul, directed for teachers whom she encourages to stock their soul before the next semester begins. This is David Toulis. We're brought to you by Eric Pelton, the numbers guy, also by Cell Surgeon. If you have a smart device or a phone that needs repair, make sure you go to Adam and Anthony at Cell Surgeon next to Old Chicago's Pizza in Northgate Mall. The number is 668-0100. That's 668-0100. Open for that crisis on Sunday, right? That's Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Also brought to you by Ducts, the indoor professionals, formerly known as Duct Busters. Ducts will clean the mold and mildew and the junk from your long-neglected ductwork. And know if they find the aftermarket machine guns from your child's Lego kit, they will not be restored to said child. They will be taken out along with the bug abdomens and the droppings of mice in your duct work. This is David Toulis. Make sure you go to Ducts to have your house taken care of in your business. 876-9907, 876-9907. We're talking with Cindy Rollins in light of a big story in Sunday's editions of the newspaper about a proposed millionaire-sponsored charter school for boys downtown. What do boys need in their learning? How can a school possibly help them? This is David Toulis.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After a few early morning clouds, lots of sunshine for your Friday. A little breezy and cooler. Highs struggling to hit 50 tonight. Lows 30 to 32. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sunshine. Highs tomorrow much warmer, around 60. Continue dry and pleasant through Sunday. As an entrepreneur, you're always on the go. Turn your mobile phone into a business phone with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. Get a local or toll-free number for more, grasshopper.com. NI-SOAR Gene 12, Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. The home of Super Bowl 50. From pregame to postgame, the Panthers face the Broncos. Hear all the exciting action live. Tennessee Valley's home for the NFL and Super Bowl 50. AM 1240, HotNewsTalkRadio.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. News Talk 1240.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business and becoming self-sufficient. Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years. 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. 875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Call me now, 875-5621.
While politicians debate climate change and taking our guns, they leave America vulnerable to disaster. You need to act now to keep your family safe and prepared. Do you have an emergency plan? Do you have long-term storage food? Do you have the skills and mindset to survive a disaster? If not, what are you waiting for? Call P5 Preparedness right now, 423-602-2175. Do you honestly think the government is going to help you? If you do, you are wrong, dead wrong. Don't get caught unprepared. Let the experts at P5 Preparedness get you ready for any emergency or disaster situation. Today, we offer a wide range of classes for the beginner on how to prepare, as well as the expert prepper. We stock a wide range of supplies, including long-term storage food, water filtration, outdoor gear, tactical gear, and plate carriers. P5 Preparedness, East Brainerd Road between I-75 and Gun Barrel Road. You will see the Army Deuce and a Half truck, 423-602-2175, 1309 Panorama Drive, Chattanooga. P5preparedness.com.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. It's going down to the wire in Iowa with polls showing GOP presidential candidate Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton in the lead before tonight's caucuses. But there are still many undecided voters.
There are others whose job it is to persuade those undecideds, like this caucus captain for Ted Cruz.
I will speak on his behalf, and I will be there early to greet people, get people checked in that are Ted supporters, and rally anybody that's undecided.
The caucus starts at 7 o'clock Central Time tonight.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers in Des Moines. Microsoft has designed an app to let Iowa precincts tally results and report them to headquarters. The company's Stan Bragg says it's a rather simple process.
It aggregates the data automatically. It's on a cloud-based platform that's highly reliable, highly secure.
Both parties are using the technology. Consumer spending was flat last month, but more people are socking it away. The savings rate hit its highest level in 3 years. Fox News. We report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A mother and father were gunned down on East 13th Street Sunday night at about 10:32. Their child appears to be a witness to the crime. He called 911 reporting that his parents had been shot. Police found two individuals on scene. They had both been shot. They were both pronounced dead on scene. The CPD has increased patrols in the area, but still does not have a suspect or a murder weapon. If you have any information regarding this crime, please call 423-698-2525. 2 vehicles have been burned at the Jewish Community Center. The FBI has been notified. The Jewish Community Center officials believe that it might just be a random act, but the CPD is treating it as though it is a hate crime. In Rossville, a SWAT team shot and killed a man. A propane company employee says that Jose Allegra, who was 64, fired upon him when he entered his property. The employee called the police. The propane employee called the police. A SWAT team responded. Mr. Allegra holed himself up inside of his house, and after a long standoff, the SWAT team killed him. The GBI is handling the investigation.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After a few early morning clouds, lots of sunshine for your Friday. A little breezy and cooler. Highs struggling to hit 50 tonight. Lows 30 to 32. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sunshine. Highs tomorrow much warmer, around 60. Continue dry and pleasant through Sunday. As an entrepreneur, you're always on the go. Turn your mobile phone into a business phone with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. Get a local or toll-free number for more, grasshopper.com. NI Source E12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go.
Hot News Talk 1240.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
The Christian ministry Answers in Genesis has won an important legal victory. It's building, as you may know, a $91 million Ark Encounter project in Kentucky at a theme park, and it is sought tax breaks worth $18 million. These were denied. An approval was rejected, but a U.S. district judge has ruled that it cannot be denied under the state constitution. The breaks for that capital project. Ken Ham, the president of Answers in Genesis, says the court's decision is a victory for the free exercise of religion in this country, including in hiring, because that was one of the sticking points, that Answers in Genesis, a Christian group, hired Christians, and it was said initially that this was not allowed because of the purported separation of church and state. This is David Toulis. I'm the editor of Nuganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. And no, it's not a popular website. It's not popular because very few people matter in the end, and those who do matter are few and far between, and they're people of ideas. And I hope you, my listener, are among that small group, and you can encourage others in the direction of the free market and the prospect of more knowledge and more learning. And we are going to find out about knowledge and learning from Cindy Rollins. She is a writer and the mother of 9 children. 8 of them are boys, and they range in age from 14 to 31. 2 of her children are still at home. One of them is home educated. Cindy and her husband Tim live here in Chattanooga. She is a fan of an English pedagogue and writer named Charlotte Mason, who my wife and I both favor very highly as far as her ideas go. And I've been asking Cindy, what would she do if a proposed boys' charter school in Chattanooga were built along the lines outlined in the work of Charlotte Mason? So, Cindy Rollins, how is it that Charlotte Mason favors in education the role of honor and an understanding of honor among students?
Well, for one thing, she favors that because she's very, very strong on the classics, Plutarch. If you go back and read Plutarch, it's a kind of a citizenship program, but these are stories that embody the ideals of Western civilization. So Charlotte Mason was very, very firm that where we get our information from is our primary source documents. When we learn, we want to be learning. It's not about the teacher knowing everything. It's about the information that the teacher has access to, her giving her students the very, very best that's available in whatever subject it is. If it's biology, if it's English, if it's history, whatever history, French, all of these different things, we want to go to the source of the best material and not just count on the teacher to be that source. And this frees us up from having teachers who are experts on everything. It's very hard to find a teacher who knows everything. And certainly homeschooling moms, that's one of the longtime criticisms of homeschooling is how could a mom know everything? Well, that's ridiculous.
And how can a mom teach honor?
Yes. Well, true. How could a mom teach honor? Well, one way a mom can teach honor is for letting her children, as she is a servant. Most moms are servants to their families, but she can also let her sons serve her. She can offer, she doesn't always have to be independent. We always think of women, strong women. I'm all for strong women. Believe me, I am. But a strong woman has the ability to back up and let someone else do something for her. If she's getting out of the car, she doesn't have to say, no, I've got all this because I'm a strong woman. No, she's strong enough to say, could you carry this for me? Could you take this chair for me? I'm all about letting boys feel like they are needed because they are needed, and they are not finding that out in our culture. So we can do that in little ways, the ways I'm talking about right now, or big ways by getting them in touch with what I call the literature of honor. And I have written a blog post about that which is up at Cersei. It was originally titled The Literature of Honor for Boys, but now it's called Books for Cultivating Honorable Boys. So if you go to the Cersei blog, CIRCE Institute, and then go .org and then hit blog, you can search through my archives. I have lots of articles there with my name, Cindy Rollins, or you can Google Books for Cultivating Honorable Boys, and it'll take you to a blog post I wrote in which we introduce boys to honor through reading, and I think I don't know what base of literature our listeners have listened to, but if you, for instance, if you take the book The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, they have a character in that book called Reepicheep. It doesn't take long reading that book for you to feel like you know what you want Reepicheep to do, and you're hoping that he does it. And of course, he has that internal struggle, but you are struggling for him to make the right choice and be brave and go. And of course, he does. He goes on to, I don't want to be a spoiler to those of you who haven't read the book, but
by C.S. Lewis.
Yes, by C.S. Lewis, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I guess it's book 3 or 4, The Chronicles of Narnia, and it's a wonderful, wonderful story. But it just gives us a simple example of honor, and how, as we're reading these books of honor, our processing, our mind is processing what we're reading, and we're making decisions about right and wrong, which is why it's very dangerous to give our children too many modern books where the existential crisis overtakes the actual truth of the situation.
Well, what happens in those books, Cindy Rollins, this existential crisis? What's the problem there?
Well, there's no truth. There's no right answer. There's no goodness. And one of the things C.S. Lewis said, when he was reading George MacDonald, Lewis said, he was not a Christian at the time, but he said, there's something here, and I think that something is goodness. And that eventually led Lewis to Christ. But in the same way, if we're constantly saying, no, there's no right answer, no, there's no right way to behave in this situation, then we are really leaving our boys in a lurch, because they have to have that striving after the good and the honorable. And when they have that, they have something to live up to. Sure, they're going to fail, and that's all right. We can pat them on the back. Our boys are going to have failures, and we want to be there for those. I mean, that part of learning is failing, and we don't have to be afraid of failure. But we also have to have something to shoot for if we're going to hit something good.
How can the Charlotte Mason theory, Cindy Collins, help a school set up to help poor families of a minority race, let's say?
Well, that is the heart and soul of my own thinking. As my kids have grown up and moved away, and I've started thinking of what this means. It's because, and I look at our culture right now. I'm a white person. I have all this white angst and guilt over racism. I don't want to be a racist. And I as a matter of fact, before I even got the phone call to do this radio show, I think constantly about education and what it means to educate. And my constant thoughts are, how can we take these ideas to the inner city where they would make a huge impact in our culture? Because there are people crying out for honor in the inner city, but there is nowhere for them to hang that hook. And we have got to start giving them that. And I look at Chattanooga and the problems we face. And so I was even up in the middle of the night last night, not knowing I was going to do this interview. And I turn over, I look at my phone, and there is a shooting, another shooting in Chattanooga. And it's 2 parents. Parents have been shot. And my heart, for some reason, it just broke my heart to hear that story in this town, in our culture, when there's no need for this to be our culture. There's no need for us to have this. We have got to we have got to go in and rescue our inner cities. I don't know what we need to do.
Well, what are the competing theories, Cindy Rollins, about the inner city? There's another theory out there, a progressive state-centered solution with more programs. The matriarchal culture have these young people more and more enwrapped in a state system, and in a kind of, I would think, a demeaning, emasculating system where you're always monitored by somebody. That's one a rough description of one theory. How does the Charlotte Mason theory differ from that, and how is it maybe better?
Well, I would definitely say that boys need strong male role models, without a doubt. And they need authority. They need, and that's not a popular concept in our culture. Now, when I say authority, I have a firm belief that the person wielding authority must wield it lightly, but they must wield it. And with our boys, it's even more important than obviously with our girls. Our boys are looking for strength, and they're looking for men to step up and show them how to be a man and how to display that honor. And so a boys' school allows you to be a little harsher with the boys without being a strong male can be very harsh in a way that a female would not be, and in a way a female would be very uncomfortable with. At the same time, he can also be wear that authority lightly, not take himself too seriously, and not be all about the authority. Authority is never about itself; it's always about the greater good. And so we want to see this. Now, where Charlotte Mason comes into this in these schools is a lot of times people look at a Charlotte Mason education, which is full of poetry and literature, and they feel like, oh, that's so.
And twaddle-free books.
Yes. Twaddle free is that's one of her words that we don't want to be, and a good example of twaddle would be a textbook. How boring is it to read a textbook which is just a spitting out of facts? Facts are never appropriate food for the mind. Facts have their place here and there, but if you want your child, your student to process, which is what learning is about, with true learning, then you're going to have to move away from facts and get into the more narrative learning. Now, there are times when we learn facts, but our facts have to be in the context of our greater learning, or we're going to be producing students without a moral fiber. Facts without a background of morality are not that great for us. We can know a lot of facts and not be better people, and not be smarter people, and not be more learned people, and certainly not have any wisdom. So we're not against learning facts, but we want our facts to be built on
in a larger narrative.
Exactly. And
you have your heroic historical figure, the self-sacrificing minor player in a national or international tragedy, some obscure person carried in a history or a novel. Those are the people you want your student to follow and admire, and to live vicariously in that story's life. And then the facts are kind of by the way at that point. They're not central to the story. Even if it's a historical fiction, or even if it's an actual history, the facts are less important than the life the student leads. The reader leads reading that text.
Yes, and if you look at even like our schools, like later on, like our business schools, a friend of mine, Vegan Gororian, has a very famous essay on the internet, I think, about why business schools should teach literature. Why is it important for a businessman to have a background in literature and stories? It's very important. It's very important for that whole moral fiber of the person, because our businessmen, our mathematicians, our technicians, our scientists, they are humans. And our education is for our humanities, and that's why we call it the liberal arts, what free men know. The liberal arts are what free men know.
So, have you answered the question of why a businessman should read literature in his working on his MBA? Why should he?
Absolutely, he should read literature. I haven't answered it.
Okay, answer it.
He should read literature so that he has a moral base and an understanding of all people and a larger context for his dealings in life, so that so he isn't just somebody whose bottom line is how much money am I going to make.
Right. A business student who reads literature, Dickens or Catherine Mansfield or Flannery O'Connor, he's learning empathy, which he's not going to get in the business school where it's all cost analysis, profit margin, and calculations. It's not, and in the end, I think you can be trained to think all about yourself. Your business is all about you, and a good capitalist, and I would perhaps even Thorpe McKenzie, thinks about other people. And I don't know about in that field if that happens, but certainly in small business and many other fields, the entrepreneur thinks about the other, his customer, and so that a man is trained in that by literature.
You could say,
in addition to studies in religion, perhaps.
Yes, you could say that for this businessman, something has captured his imagination. His imagination has been captured by an idea, and he's putting his money into what he's imagined. C.S. Lewis, quoting Augustine, calls education the ordo amoris. It's the ordering of our loves. We don't always love, and our boys don't always love the true and the good and the beautiful. But that is the goal of education. The goal of education is to order our love so that we will begin to love what is true and what is good and what is beautiful.
So let's talk a bit further, Cindy Rollins, about how a school like this, a charter school that's proposed by Thorpe McKenzie, the millionaire who wants to bequeath his city with his generosity. How would a school like that help the inner city problems that we have in Chattanooga?
Well, and this is interesting that you asked me that question, because as I got up in the middle of the night and I'm reading that story and I'm praying, I'm thinking, Heavenly Father, I am nobody. How could I help the inner city of Chattanooga? And I'm completely overwhelmed. But I do believe that God loves our inner cities, and He loves the people in there. And there are mothers in the inner cities who are crying in their hearts for their children to have options and opportunities that they don't have. So I can't help but believe that if a group of men in our city of Chattanooga did get together and did start this school, that it would have an impact. Maybe it wouldn't. This is the thing that is so hard for us in our culture. Is that we like our fruit to be born immediately. We want to grow lettuce or spinach, and in a couple weeks we want to go cut our spinach and have our fruit. But real and lasting fruit takes a long time, and that's why I'm so about education. We've got such a mess on our hands, and everybody has all these solutions. We're going here and we're going there. Why don't we go back to why don't we start at the beginning with whoever we can? No, we can't. We can't save everybody, and we don't have all the answers. I certainly don't have all the answers, but we can start, and we can look for fruit in the future, and that's where we're going to have to look for it. We can't expect to gain, overturn, and change our culture. I like to think of Henry V when I start talking about this stuff. The fewer we are, the greater share of glory. Our culture. We have a culture that's failing, and we all see it, and we're all but this is our culture. This is the culture that we live in. We can't turn against our culture, because that would be committing cultural suicide. This is our culture, so we have to continue to hook up. And I look at education as this way: is I'm throwing a line. My parents threw something to me, and I'm throwing it on to my children, and that is the culture. And that has broken down. There are many, many people that are not having their culture passed on to them, and they're floundering. And the more of us that can throw hooks to those people, the better off we'll be as a culture.
This is David Toulis. We're talking with Cindy Rollins, who's a writer. Her work is found at circeinstitute.org. That's CIRCE Institute.org. She's a mother of 8 sons, 9 children altogether. And Cindy, I was recently on a hike on Lookout Mountain, and one of your sons was there, and he was spouting poetry on the trail.
Oh, wonderful. And that was one of my
How did he do that?
I think he was my 27-year-old son. So all my boys, we did a lot of poetry in our home, and you would think, and people don't understand poetry anymore. It's become kind of a feely, happy-feely, kind of girly kind of thing. But poetry is metaphorical thinking. It teaches us to take an idea and process the idea and put it and think of it in a different way. That is a high level of thinking. And it also touches our hearts. Now, poetry is not easy. When you quote a poem, it doesn't immediately change you. It doesn't immediately help you to understand it. But when you have a lifetime of poetry in your heart, you have something. All my guys have grown up to do things that I totally hate. They're all doing very manly things with guns. I can't even tell you what some.
One's a police officer.
Yeah, one is a police officer, and a couple more in other fields that I'm. That
in the military as well.
Yeah, I sort of, and they're doing these things that I wouldn't have planned for them to do. And this is actually the beauty of the liberal arts. I did not plan my future of my children. I gave them a strong liberal arts background. And then when they were on a 30-mile ruck with 50 pounds on their back, what did they do to get through those ruck marches? Well, they quoted poetry. They quoted scripture. They sang songs, and every time one of my sons ran a marathon, he said, I did what my older brother did. I started trying to remember every poem I could say and every Bible verse I could say, and that's how I got through the marathon. These are things that have a lasting impact that in our hearts and our lives, and these are things that are going to last long after we're gone, and their education and what they learned and the chemical elements and the math facts are gone.
A local millionaire plans on bequeathing some of his wealth on a charter school here in Chattanooga for boys serving the inner city. This is a very exciting prospect. Let's hope it is a free market-oriented operation, not relying on the state, a part where there is liberty and freedom. Cindy Rollins, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cindy Rollins is a writer focusing on educational topics. This is David Toulis.
Chattanooga Patriots Prepper Show every Thursday from 11 to noon on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You need a place for your party or maybe a wedding reception for 100 or even more. Maybe you'd like to host a small trade